from. But, you know, you do have to consider that the Reaper micro is going to be tested a lot more than usual when you are playing crossover from Korea to Europe. It is the worst possible situation, pretty sure, for Koreans. So, might not want to be actually trying to prove that. If this was LAN, or if he was playing North America West, you know, then maybe. But probably not going to try and prove that he's the better microer. And of course, I think just expectations of non-Koreans have changed. I mean, as they should, as they naturally would have. But, I mean, we're talking about Dark 3 or 4 years ago being about as bad-mouthing as anyone could be in StarCraft 2, honestly. And even then, it really wasn't that much, of course. It was all very good jest, fun, barely even a heal type situation. But to now, which is him just mostly being like, yeah, kind of scared. He's true, he's real about it. But anyways, Maru is still looked at as the favorite in every single matchup that he goes into. So that includes crossover 3 in the morning, something like that. TvT. If I actually really thought about who I thought was going to win, though, if I just didn't think about the name so much, I'd actually say MarineLord. Yeah. I mean, he kind of can be like hot or cold sometimes, but I think he's going to do all right here. Couple of Reapers getting into the main base, going to go for a little scout around, are going to be bopped eventually, but if they can grab 3 or 4 SCVs, that might be a success, actually. 3, 4, there it is. Okay. Yeah, okay. Maru's units are just, you know, the slightest bit out of position, and his other 2 Reapers that were on the way do take quite a while to actually pop out, so that was decent enough timing for MarineLord. He does have to withstand the counterattack, and that is always the awkward part. 1 Cyclone seems like it might be enough, right? Cyclones are pretty powerful, but quantity versus quality, and the quantity, especially if he has a couple of crowd control maneuvers like grenades, can be actually intimidating for the Cyclone. So MarineLord, I think he shows it, kind of looking for the first lock-on, and if he was pounced upon, would have immediately backed away into the second Cyclone, or tank, right? It can sometimes be the one on the way out. So Maru doesn't really push his luck. That means he does have a couple of units that aren't necessarily the best units possible. A couple of Hellions, Reapers, well, they could maybe jump on in and kill a couple of SCVs, but he's actually getting a medevac. So, in this case, these units that are really getting worse over time, right now they're turning into fodder units. And if they can tank 1 or 2 shots from a tank, as opposed to the Marines or the tank that Maru is bringing over here, doesn't get shot at, then that's good. That's actually a fairly effective use of it. So he is going to be very aggressive, just move right on up to that natural base. Actually, a lot more aggressive than I thought he was going to be. I thought he was going to back away a little bit. Medevac is going to get taken out just barely by that Cyclone. And the second Cyclone, oh, unfortunately, got a lock on the Hellion, doesn't even kill. MarineLord is going to be forced to pull away. This is some very aggressive maneuvering from Maru. Hella aggressive. This is actually comically aggressive, to be honest. It's just, it's so far up in the natural. He is going to be able to take out a tank, though, before Maru gets taken down. I mean, that was overall not too shabby. Oh, wow. The resource trade was almost perfect. Technically, Maru comes out a little bit behind. A little bit, but damn. Oh, jeez. I thought he was going to maybe, like, go up. Either he was going to abuse the corner of the natural, and I was like, I don't know if that's what's going to do, but... Or he was going to try and kind of back away, you know, near those boxes, I suppose. But he just literally put it, like, right on top of the natural. That was... I don't know if anyone else is supposed to do that. I don't know if you're supposed to follow that, guys. I don't know if you want to do that in your own games. But anyways, MarineLord handles it rather gracefully, I would say. Actually, it could be a lot more panic when that happens. I think I would even say that a lot of what the Terran doing that, literally dropping right in front of your face, is trying to get you to do is panic. But obviously, if he had jumped on top of a tank that was sieged of MarineLord, that also would have been rather ideal. MarineLord gone for 2 Cyclones, that kind of actually ended up doing alright. And then we get our Raven portion of the game. MarineLord going up to 3 Ravens. Maru just 1. and then right into that Viking production. So this means that he's going to have less auto turrets, right? Less interference matrices, and Ravens are very, very useful. But what he is going to have is a lot of dependency. Like, he's going to be able to depend on his Vikings to actually hold positions. Looks like he took out the Cyclone there. But the Vikings can hold positions and abuse the site like we know they usually can. Whereas the Ravens, it's a little bit more burst, you know? Like, once they have it, they're going to go and collapse in with the auto turrets and try and make a break for it. But if Maru can get into a really nice position, he can even try to bully the Ravens with his own Vikings. Because MarineLord's only just now getting to his Viking production. Technically, there isn't much safety for his Ravens. They're kind of, basically the Ravens trying to cover each other right now, but especially with Vikings' decent distance on their attack, they can try and chase after these Ravens. So that's the combat right now. Two different ways of playing into it, but two equally good ways. I even want to repair the Raven, just to make sure it doesn't get sniped. MarineLord making sure to be in position. I mean, it's quite a walk between hitting the third and trying to get to the natural, as we can see here, but Maru is going to figure, okay, hitting the natural is going to be a bit better. And now the fourth gas is taken, he will be able to shoot at that. MarineLord playing very well, pulls away those SCVs, and is still going to be very well saturated. Yes, missing a gas, but since he's getting his third gases rather quickly, it's actually really that bad at all. His 1-1's already started, his Stim's all on the way, so Maru does have that advantage, but obviously since it's still tank, Viking, Raven, there's not a whole lot of Marines to work with. We're not talking about that much of an advantage for Stim and combat shields. As they add more barracks, as they finish the reactors, obviously that's going to be a huge deal. Oh, it looks like MarineLord thinks he can go for it, and he might be right about that. Though 3 Ravens, having gathered a lot of energy, slap everything they have down. Tanks siege up for MarineLord, and Maru's tanks, well, they were sieged first. None of them could shoot. Every single one goes down. MarineLord takes one hell of a fight. And that was, yeah, if I do say so myself, that was actually a rather perfect graphic representation of what I was talking about. Maru was going for more of the, you know, okay, I can kind of push and pull, I can take it slow, I can take it fast, but basically my Vikings can, you know, I can depend on them. Whereas MarineLord was like, burst, go for it, okay, I can go for it, go. And that actually ended up working out really well for him. Maru is at least able to save his Vikings, but it's kind of one of those things where if the Vikings had been there, maybe they could have landed, maybe they could have actually taken a Raven out before the Raven got to throw out all of its auto turrets, you know? So it's not... I don't know if you actually walk away with that with 7 Vikings and think, yeah, that's what I wanted to do. I don't know. MarineLord does take a worker advantage, an army advantage, but he did lose every single Raven, so it was certainly a trade. And Maru does already have those combat shields as we get into more of the marine-focused portion of TvT. Otherwise, upgrades are similar, but combat shields is pretty big. Definitely not going to be any timing, though. So MarineLord's combat shield's about 20 seconds away from finishing. Maru very boldly placing his command center on location, but that is necessary if he hopes to keep up with the economy, because MarineLord's fourth is already done. And now Maru is moving on to a lot more reactors, second factories on the way. Both of them continuing to get their upgrades at pretty equal timings. I mean, it's definitely MarineLord favored. You just look at the numbers and tell that, but it's not so much favored that Maru can't make the comeback happen. I'm actually really looking forward to seeing how this map plays out in TvT. I mean, I do think that just in general, Terrans are it's the race that's going to abuse the map the most. That's why we see, you know, a decent amount of victories for Terrans when it comes to the map contests, and we usually see some Terran dominance for the first couple of weeks. Last map pool was actually in general a bit Terran favored, but I would say even in map pools where it wasn't, for the first week or so, the Terrans were the ones getting away with some abusive positioning. Nice little grab there from MarineLord with no repercussions. Now it's 0 Raven to 0 Raven. But yeah, you're going to see the most abuse of a map from a Terran, I would say. Like, once upon a time it was force fields, I guess, that would really show the very abusive portions of the map, but now it's tank positioning and Liberator positioning, which I've heard that there's a couple of Liberator spots that are very annoying. That's a very bold drop right there. Maru's still scanning around, checking, seeing if that is the whole army, and where is the army? Now, sometimes if it's a really big split of the army, you can tell that something is awry, you can tell something is missing. But in this case, I think Maru only just realized that as it entered into Sensor Tower territory, the Vikings a bit late to the party, but actually I think this will be handled rather nicely. Tank is already sieged up in the natural. And, you know, oh, whoa, lots of bodies on the ground already over to the right side, trying to break into the third base with the big distracting quadruple drop into the natural, not working out as well as MarineLord was hoping. I think he was really hoping that Maru would have less tanks already correctly sieged up. I'm guessing, right? Or that he had taken all of his Marines over to deal with the drop. But because Maru actually sized up that drop so accurately, he was also able to leave behind enough units to defend any second push. So really nicely done by Maru. Good strategy, good tactics there for MarineLord, no doubt about that, but it just didn't work out. And he has lost a bit of that lead he had accrued. He still has more workers, but as we both get maxed out, I mean, that can be a little bit, you know, personal, like who actually wants more workers versus who wants more army. And I guess most importantly right now, it's about that Raven control. Maru, you know, he saved those Vikings earlier on, and I made a point to be like, oh, well, maybe if they could have been with the battle, it would have been better. But if you are going to try and kind of just like skip forward to the super late game of TvT, if you are going to get into the Raven Viking portion, then obviously having more Vikings is going to set you up better. It's always a question of can you actually get there safely, and Maru very much did. So he's already got a couple of Ravens added on. He's starting to take some really good trades, just left, right, and center, actually. The tanks on the left side perfectly positioned for Maru, or almost perfectly positioned, I should say. I mean, pretty much, like, that was great use of the terrain, actually. I don't know if they could have been any better placed. They were just out of vision of MarineLord, so as MarineLord thought, oh my god, I'm going to get a huge concave, Maru actually had two tanks fire in a way that was very nicely protected. And MarineLord still holds on to a rather strong army supply. That's a lot because he's been making more Marines. And Maru's been, I guess, did he actually add? Yeah, okay, that's what I thought. Like, he just didn't add more barracks. So MarineLord's remaxing faster because Maru's just remaxing on Ravens and tanks, but they're both producing the same amount of those things. So basically, Maru's just not remaxing faster, and this is a huge grab. 5 tanks going down. Make that a 6th. Oh, or not. Oh, there we go. I guess he thought there was more behind that tank. That was a bit funny. But that's a great grab because Maru is only on 2 factory productions, right? Like, tanks are still very much vital to this TvT, even as we talk about Ravens and Vikings. This Widow Mine from earlier actually contributing. Look at that. But Maru had just been slapped down to 3 tanks. MarineLord is only on 3 tanks to begin with. Actually, MarineLord is very much trying... I mean... It's actually kind of a weird position right now. Usually Raven tank is kind of like the ideal situation, almost like if you could get to a mech situation of just tank Raven, you might actually have a pretty damn good army. But MarineLord is very much focusing on the remax of Marines, giving him more units to work with to actually get on top of the army like he's been doing, like he's doing right here, right now, and it might just win him the game. Maru had already lost so many tanks earlier on, he loses the rest of them, and now he's going to lose the entire air army that he had spent a lot of this game accruing, and he's going to lose that planetary fortress. MarineLord playing a very nice late game here. The only reason I was kind of hesitant, oops, good calls, Marine. The only reason I was hesitant, and I was like, okay, MarineLord's kind of playing this, you know, style, is that, like, he's also been adding in Ravens. Right? Like, it's not like he just went, okay, I'm going to lose the air game, I'm just going to give up on it, I'm just going to go full-on Marines. Like, no, he was still trickling in Ravens. But because he was definitely adding on so many more Marines, again, he was maxing out a bit faster, and he just had more units to work with. The concave, right? The amount of Marines you can get is super high if that's what you're focusing on. He was able to outmaneuver Maru and take all these engagements where the tanks weren't in proper positions, when they weren't sieged up and protecting each other. Maru's gonna get a second chance at life, but I think he's only gonna get the one chance, and if he fails any further, he's just gonna fail right out of this game. This might be it. Not quite. MarineLord is going to just take what he can get and stay on top of the natural, kind of, on the ramp. And he is very much so respecting Maru's remaining army. Maru was basically barely been able to gather enough to defend. He's still at an overall 30 army supply, or 30 supply deficit, but only about 10 on the army. That's definitely something you can overcome with tanks and Ravens. Talk about the upgrades for a second. This is also something that MarineLord's been better doing. He's just been actually getting the 3rd upgrade for the armor. Obviously, attack, if you had to choose one, attack's better. But in this situation, you are just supposed to get 2 the whole way through. 1, 1, 2, 2, 3, 3. So Maru at some point probably tried to start it and then didn't have enough gas, something like that. So that has been contributing to some of these fights. So much more of it, though, I just felt that Maru's been out of position. He hasn't had enough tanks to actually just kind of litter them around to protect all of his points, so he's been trying to do it with either not enough tanks or no tanks, and MarineLord has been pouncing on those opportunities. This time around, this isn't going to actually net him too much more. He grabs the tank that was defending the planetary, but the planetary still holds strong, and Maru is certainly on his way to stabilizing. But MarineLord isn't just winning because of the supplies, he's also taking control over the map and the game in general. He's gotten a ton of bases, a ton of production, and he is still trying to find any holes in Maru's defenses. And without a planetary over here, this might be another hole, but auto turret's coming down. A plenty from Maru is going to actually be able to tear this down, push it back, and MarineLord is going to have to try another plan of attack. Not bad. Everything was painted orange. I got a little bit confusing there for a second, but not bad. Maru finally able to really use his Ravens like he's been hoping to for the past, like, 4 minutes. He's been building up to this really strong army, but he's been missing crucial elements to it, basically tanks and positioning. But his actual Raven count was very impressive, although now just being sent back down to just 3 or 4. MarineLord does take away a lot of the Ravens and will barely be able to take the engagement. No, not quite, actually. As some of his units rally in, now they're just rallying in one at a time. Definitely not ideal. Maru's tanks end up surviving that engagement. And now there's 5 of them about to hit MarineLord's 3rd base as Maru done another comeback in TvT. Not as impressive as his IEM one, but still pretty impressive nonetheless. MarineLord forced to pull the SCVs just to give that concave on top of the tanks. He takes the tank down all but 1, actually, as the Vikings land, just to provide some equal buffer, basically. Bodies on the floor to protect the tanks, of which he is still rallying forward. And Maru and MarineLord stay locked at around 150 supply. And MarineLord probably having to take a breath right now, as I also have to. He's probably just like, okay, I'm not dead. Like, thank God. That was a little sketch. That was a little scary. But he's not dead. He is still in a difficult position, because if his position here gets broken, then it is a bit like his back getting broken. This is a really important part, because it leads into his natural, which of course leads into his main production line, his reinforcement point. So that's a tough game for MarineLord to play. For Maru, you know, as he realizes, okay, I didn't actually break this guy, he's got to worry about where the army actually is. Is it all here ready to take me on? And if it is, do I have enough to hold against it? First question. Second question, if it isn't, then where else could it be? Because MarineLord has been able to outmaneuver him a decent amount of times in this game. It's always going to be a fear for Maru, who does pull back. Unfortunately, he pulls back to a position that didn't actually cover both of his bases, so now the return has happened. Berlingrad really being a back-and-forth map right now, as this time the 3rd CC of Maru is going to go down. MarineLord barely saved his, but he gets a command center and a very swift trade. Unsieged his tanks at just the right moment, too, so a couple of them end up living despite being interference matrixed. And MarineLord, he claps back. They both are just duking it out here. And both of them playing some fabulous TvT. I would say MarineLord might be playing a bit better just because you look at the mini-map and you see so many more bases for MarineLord. I also feel like he has been better at adding on production. Something that Maru has been able to do at certain points in this game. He's had a bit of a bank, but he might be thinking, okay, I'm going to remax soon, so I don't want to do that quite yet. Or maybe he thinks that the current production he's on is good enough. Either way, MarineLord has had more barracks, and he's had more starports for a lot of this game. A little clever micro right there. Take out some of the tanks almost for free. Now, that said, MarineLord might already be on quite a few bases. It's not like he's been saturated on all these bases, right? So it's not like Maru is quickly running out of minerals to even get to. And he is successfully, successfully getting to the bottom left. That one tank might not be enough. Okay, this is a bit awkward. Just a couple of Marines. Oh, okay, tucking themselves into a corner. High stock auto tracking is done for MarineLord, but not for Maru. Which Maru should get. He should get high stock auto tracking. Just to make sure that Marines... I mean, it doesn't happen that often, you know, but just to make sure Marines can't tuck themselves into that corner. Give the planetary a bit of extra range. These command centers are goners. That's one killed, not cancelled. It's not like Maru has a humongous bank. And at this point, MarineLord is building quite a big bank of his own. Now, funnily enough, on this type of map, which, you know, has very clearly been very back and forth, especially when it comes to attacking each other's third bases very quickly to each other's thirds, it's not so much about the bank, you know, especially because, Terrans, we don't have larvae and we don't have warp gates, so if we are trying to re-max after being maxed out, like, it takes a little bit, even if you have a lot of production. So, basically what I'm trying to say is that momentum can very quickly shift. So that's a concern, even though MarineLord looks like he's definitely going to win based on the numbers that you see on your screen. Not always a guarantee. If Maru can take one really brilliant engagement and then immediately counterattack, he could find his way on top of MarineLord's production. We know that's a killer for a Terran, no matter the position. Now, this is a bit awkward. Orbital was kind of cheeky placed down to the bottom left, hoped to not be found out, and to be fair, it has been mining a little bit for a long time. But I think MarineLord was ready and willing to accept its defeats if it was found out. He was like, yeah, that was kind of, you know, I just thought maybe. 20 SCVs do go down with it, but I don't think MarineLord's going to be caring about that too much. Actually, just going to use the 10 supply to get more Marines. Fair is fair. Trying to engage this position is a bit bold. Ravens coming in from all different directions. Maru actually not really slapping a whole lot down. Both of them getting the anti-air missiles, that's great, but Maru still has a ton of Ravens with a ton of energy that he's deciding to, he can't use quite yet. Finally using the interference matrix, but the auto turrets can't actually be placed down. Maru's starting to get really low in the tanks, but MarineLord is about to be sieged up on here by a Liberator. This is getting really awkward as their supplies get quite even. MarineLord does dip down a little bit more as the Vikings and Ravens continue to dominate the skies from Maru. MarineLord just lost out on all those Marines that he had, right? But it's that was quite close. That was quite close, and that Liberator positioning over all that terrain that we see that the Liberator's on top of was kind of brutal, actually. It's just the south a little bit, it was on top of that. That's, I don't think MarineLord, even if he had noticed, could have been able to shoot that down with Marines. That's kind of a little bit funky. MarineLord, as I was saying, had a bigger bank, and he had a lot of production. He even added on more factories, right? So as far as remaxes go, he's definitely on the faster trend of Terrans. He went up to 4 factories and 9 barracks from the last time that I mentioned his production. So again, just always been far ahead on that part. And even though he lost the bottom left base, he's been pretty happily in control of the top right. And this time around, the bottom left base is going to be a planetary with both of those upgrades to help it out. So Maru's going to have to dedicate quite a bit to it to actually tear it down. So far, a fantastic TvT, very even as well. This is, oh, well, not a planetary, so I guess it's another freebie for Maru. But Maru needs all the freebies that he can get. He's actually struggling to get to a decent bank. He's also finding himself constantly in really poor positions. Maybe not super poor, but basically he's always been on the back foot, right? It's always been, of the last 2 or 3 minutes, MarineLord moving into Maru. And making sure that Maru kind of awkwardly has to, you know, stick in his corner and kind of hold on to his life. I mean, he's doing a great job punching back when he can, and he's doing a great job surviving, but as far as actually winning the rounds, Maru's not been doing very much more of that in the last 4 or 5 minutes. He's taking his victories when he can grab them, and I think he also knows that all it takes is one really good fight for the momentum to really shift. Either a really good fight, or MarineLord getting a little overconfident. If MarineLord, you know, pushes 2 different Marine armies to 2 different locations and barely doesn't get enough for either one, well, then Maru could go right up the middle and actually create some awkwardness. There's also potential for a base race. I mean, I don't think on this map it does seem to be a bit contained. It's not a small map necessarily, but they're able to figure each other out pretty quickly here. But there's always that chance. And who would a base race actually favor? Pretty much whoever figures out it's a base race first, I would say. There's that fight up the middle that I was talking about, and MarineLord's not really prepared for this. His tank count is at 1. Oh no, oh no. It's kind of what I was saying, actually. Not to pat myself on the back too much, but he's been taking these Marine forces to the left and the right, so he's not in the middle. Okay, that did happen, but then he's also, even I didn't really realize this, he's been losing tanks every single time he's done that. Like 3 tanks here, 3 tanks over there, and suddenly he has no tanks to actually draw a line in the sand. And that is going to hurt. So that is really going to hurt, because he's not been able to stop this push into his third, which, to be fair, it's been defended well enough. It's about time it actually died. And he's barely able to manage a defense of his natural, but he's actually going to collapse in on here. MarineLord coming in from a 270 degree surround. No, not really! Oh my god, that actually turned so sour! Oh my god. I mean, that was a 270 arc right there. That was impressive looking on the minimap. But actually, as far as its effectiveness, it was about 0. Felt like it didn't do anything. And now he's going to come in as actually all the tanks were unsieged there from Maru, but he just has so many that, you know, he will be able to siege at least half of them every single time, and half is just too many for MarineLord to handle. Now MarineLord is definitely on the ropes right now. He has been in control of this game for a decent... I feel like he's been in control of this game for, I want to say, at least 60, maybe even 70%. A lot of the times it's been Maru on the ropes, barely defending. But things have quickly turned around. Like I said, such a I guess, a momentum-based map, kind of like Beckett Industries, I suppose. Ravens do come in from behind, however. MarineLord going to jump on top of the one tank that's actually firing. Not even that one to actually fire, as everything gets painted orange as well. Does MarineLord actually have enough? By the looks of it, the answer is no, as MarineLord played a brilliant TvT, but Maru, he's just a TvT master, man. He has some insane win record right now, which is like 75%. This is a decent concave for MarineLord again, but he just doesn't have the numbers. And with the loss of this army, he will lose his main base. He knows it, so he taps out. And Maru will get game number 1. Number 1. Shit. That is, that is quite the match. That is quite the match. I mean, it's really cool of MarineLord to be able to go toe-to-toe with Maru. Because I didn't really get to talk about this too much, because I kind of forgot for a second, to be fair. But yeah, someone had pointed out that Maru's TvT win record was insanely high. I'm actually going to try and find it. I guess I could also go to a Legulac, but that's my cat. It's very needy now. Maru has only lost 1 TvT in the last 12 months. So I don't even know what percentage that would make him. His only loss this year came to his accounts against TY and IEM. He's 17-1 in matches and 46-13 in maps this year. I mean, that is pretty impressive, all right? Because he doesn't play in a lot of the online cups, I suppose, you know, it could have been more maps if he was Zest. Might have been like 200 maps, right, and 10 losses, but considering that he kind of he picks and chooses a little bit, I guess what's the word I'm looking for? He plays not in a lot of things, but the things he plays in are very, very difficult. That is still a very, very impressive number, because, you know, it's mostly GSL or in these cross tournaments like the season finals or IAM. So he's facing the best of the best, and he's still getting these insane win records. Oof. Oof, oof, oof. Oh, I think I missed a couple of things. Thank you, Borsty, for the 50-month resub. Nifty 50. And thank you, 47 is for the 20 bucks. Thank you very much. Nomac with the 81-month resub. Oof, thank you. Appreciate the return. Return of stream love, guys. I don't know if you can actually see my... I don't think you can see my cat, but that's the reason the mic is moving. Yeah. And, oh, Game 2 is going to be on 2,000 atmospheres. I'm glad that Berlingrad was fun for that as well. I feel like already I have a positive impression of that map. I was a bit surprised. It's always so hard to tell, you know, distance, I guess, until you actually get into the game and play it or you cast it. Just looking at an image of the map and you're like, well, it could be small, it could be large. But the way that they could get to each other's third base did actually remind me a bit more of Beckett. Said I was going to look up the rush distance as well to see if maybe they've been updated. Oh, I learned something really cool in the last month, guys. I've always alt left click or control left click to open a new tab. The middle mouse button, the scroll wheel, also does it. Anyways, we have 2,000 atmosphere. So Berlingrad is 33 seconds of rush distance. So It's shorter than 2,000 atmospheres, but longer than Beckett. It's the same as Blackburn. There you go. Curious Minds. That's the other map we haven't seen yet. Curious Minds. It's also a bit longer. Glittering Ashes is super long. So 2,000 atmospheres is going to be our reference point, guys, for all the nerd StarCraft number fans in chat. And that's, you know, considered a basic map, basically. You know, it's basic, good for Legacy of the Void. Yeah, anyway. 35 seconds. Curious Minds, 34. Glittering Ashes, 39. 39 seconds. That's large. And Hardwire is 36. And Pride of Alteris is 40 seconds long. Oh my god. Okay. Well, I'm glad I was accurate, at least for that. They said they looked really large, and they are large. Alright, into game 2. I do think this is bound to look different because of the map. And not because it's an old versus new map, just the size of the map. The way that they can collide around the third bases. In the bottom left, it is the red Terran MarineLord. And in the top right, we have the blue Terran Maru. Thank you to Ancient One, SC2 for the 16 months. Oops. How is Maru so good? He has been playing StarCraft since he was literally a child. And a lot of StarCraft as well. MarineLord's been streaming Age of Empires 4 non-stop. I'd be surprised if he wins anything. Not to say that hard work and practice aren't important, but I do think taking a couple of days to stream another game is actually not that impactful to your performance. In some cases, it can be actually positively impactful anyways. You kind of loosen up, kind of get a better mindset. All that good stuff. But I don't think you can... I mean... I don't think you can look at that last game and say, I'd be surprised if MarineLord wins anything, right? On the whole context, you could say I'd be surprised if MarineLord won this qualifier, but I wouldn't say it's because of his current place. I think it'd be because Maru is just really, really good, you know? Clearly, MarineLord is doing very well. Because mechanically, he was doing fine. I've made the classic mistake of getting too excited about a TvT. And I have a lot of casting to do today, actually. We are not that close to finishing today. The winner of this does face Hearthstone, by the way, though. So, we are almost to a qualifying match, but we're probably going to do more than one qualifying match, and then there is the lower bracket as well, which generally takes quite a while. Because people... Well, especially because people tend to take breaks if they go to the lower bracket, or don't realize that someone else has also dropped down a lower bracket. You know, that whole thing. Okay, so what are the openers right now? 2,000 atmospheres, kind of a large map, TvT. It don't care. If you want to be aggressive, be aggressive. In this case, MarineLord is going to be adding on quite a few Reapers, so got the reactor, still added on Reapers. Actually, Maru's gonna go for another medevac drop? Mm-hmm. Yes, he is. Yes, he is. Similar idea, I'm guessing. Again, I don't think you should try this at home. But it's gonna be awkward, because MarineLord is gonna hit him first. Well... Actually, I think the most awkward thing... This is going to be interesting. I'll just leave it at that. MarineLord's going to push as Maru might be picking up. That would be the most awkward situation. Now, if Maru comes, like, if he sees this, like, right now, and he goes back home and unloads, he might be fine. That's the current situation, but, yeah, could have been, could have been a bit more awkward. Tank sieges up on the high ground, look at his split, but it can only protect the natural so much. So at the end of the day, MarineLord is still going to find success with his units. So many of his Reapers are actually almost dead, too. They're barely alive. That's a good save. That's a very good save. Because MarineLord's only down to 2 Reapers. Yeah. They can still kill SCVs, but 4, they can kill a lot of SCVs. Good intuition there from Maru, though, realizing, hey, there's a lot of Reapers that are left alive. Let's make sure to cover the Reaper hop-up spot. Good thinking. With that many Reapers, you do have to be a little concerned, again, about the Cyclone and only the Cyclone. So the Marines had to come in and help out a little bit. MarineLord, again, trying to trade as effectively as possible. At the end of the day, MarineLord is the one that applied some pressure. So he did get enough damage to get a slight worker lead. That's great. And he also applied enough pressure that Maru was on his side of the map, you know, obviously this entire time, not doing the drop like he wanted, and not really able to immediately counterattack, right? To be like, okay, you just sacrifice your units, I'm going to go across the map and kill you. Because he really didn't sacrifice his units. He actually saved quite a bit, even tried to get them another couple of kills. So, again, time being important in StarCraft. So MarineLord doesn't have an 8 or 10 army supply difference. He is only at a 2 army deficit. It's not very big. Still depends on positioning, which it seems like he is well aware of. So he's got a nice little defensive setup. This is cute. Maru is going to try and find MarineLord continuing the aggression. It costs Maru kind of nothing to do this. It's so early on in TvT that unless MarineLord was going into a 2-1-1, which you've already would have figured out by the lack of Reapers and Hellions and whatnot. Yeah, pretty much, yeah. So a 2-on-1 being, you know, like actually directly into 16 Marines and 2 medevacs. You don't have any worry about them flying around the map and trying to kill you and doom drop you. So having your army in the middle of the map or on their side of the map, you know where their army is pretty much. It's not flying around in medevacs yet. Well, MarineLord is going to have to tackle this a bit far forward. I don't know if this is really ideal for him. I don't think so. I don't think so. Maru is going to be able to collapse in on this. The tanks are not going to get maybe a single shot. They got a single shot. And hey, that single shot was pretty important. Vikings also come forward for MarineLord, chase down one of the Ravens. And oh, the Cyclone gets a lock on as well. Could die for the tank. Is going to be able to get the tank. Yes, it will. And didn't have to die for it. The Vikings land a body block. The Raven is going to try and auto-turret, but it's actually going to get killed by a couple of backup Vikings from Maru. I think it was maybe hoping an auto turret would help out, but that was kind of a funny engagement because it was a bit explosive to begin with, right? Like they just kind of butted heads and you're like, okay, let's see how this goes. But then at the end, the last 10% of that fight was very micro-oriented. Now at the end of the fights, what can we say everyone has? MarineLord comes out ahead a little bit in the Vikings, but he lost his Raven. Maru still has 1 Raven. Stim is a little bit faster for MarineLord, but really not a big deal. Perhaps the biggest takeaway... I mean, still very even, actually. Maru's got slightly faster +1 attack. That's cool, but probably not a timing he's going to hit. And then MarineLord has slightly faster barracks. But again, not so much faster that I think it's going to be truly impactful to the game. MarineLord actually adding on some Liberators. This can be a cute little thing to add in. You can either try and continue Viking Wars, or get your medevacs, obviously. Or you can add in Liberators, and either go for some harassment at a very odd time, when a lot of the focus is on still sieging your opponent. Or even if you think you have the Viking dominance, and they're not going to go into Vikings, you could try and actually just, like, blitz them. Like, run into their army, and siege up the Liberators. Hopefully kill a tank before they realize they have to unsiege. Woohoo! Really wants to get that Raven. Really wants to get the Raven. I don't know if it's quite worth sacrificing all the Vikings for, but... oh, it's probably so tempting. Oh, it's probably so tempting. Not possible anymore. Liberator has also been kind of figured out. Now, one is going to stay at home to help defend, and the other one's going to go for that harassment that I was talking about. I do think that is the proper call. Liberator is going to siege up on top of these tanks and actually get a couple of shots off. The Raven finally also goes down. MarineLord will actually hold this, and actually he's going to win. He's going to straight up win. Very much so a nicer concave for MarineLord, negating a lot of Maru's tank fire. And then just a decent number of reinforcements. Combat shields also wasn't quite done for Maru, I think, before that engagement was said and done. Liberator sieges up to do nothing. Unfortunately, it was seen long in advance, so it really doesn't do anything at all. But MarineLord still can take away the fight. He can say, okay, I won the fight. That's actually pretty nice. He's got his third CC, you know, mining the entire time. He'd have to pick up his third. He didn't have to lose any SCVs, pulling them away. What he doesn't have is a 4 CC on location, and he did scout that with the Liberator, so that's a bit sour, but again, not so much that I think it really, truly will impact the game. Very little bits here and there being different for both Terrans. MarineLord is a, you know, decent amount ahead in the supply. Oh, and this, oh, he's actually gonna hit this perfectly. This might be, oh, just barely not gonna be able to stop that command center from finishing, and I don't think he'll get the kill. It's not that many Marines. And they're gonna have to chase into it, and they're gonna be very low as they chase into it. The SCVs are not being pre-pulled, though. The command center is barely going to live for now, and SCV's get on top of it. Woo, 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 woo. Okay. We're good. If MarineLord had first and foremost focus fired the SCV, he might have been able to get it, but obviously a cancel, not a kill at that point. Anyways, MarineLord now evening up the 4th command center timings as he plants his down, and Maru will eventually plant his down, has taken a 20 supply lead, 20-ish supply lead. 2-2 starts at very similar timings, and MarineLords are going to have a planetary, so he really won't have to worry about his side of the map very much right now. He knows that he's going to be in control for a little while. But, you know, there was a lot of points in that last game where MarineLord was in the driver's seat. As I said, I want to say like 60% is a fair call about how many times MarineLord seemed to be winning that game. That he was the one applying the pressure at the very least, right? Which isn't always necessarily the goal, the winning goal. But it still didn't end up mattering. He still lost the game. So it's always something to consider in TvT, but especially on a smaller map like Berlingrad. 2000 Atmospheres being back to basics, I don't think is going to be quite as shifty when it comes to momentum, but, you know, that can just be TvT. Drop in the main wasn't super successful, but also wasn't a super big failure either. Medevac full of units got away. I'll come back again later. MarineLord is going to divvy up his army and hit in 2 different places. Now, Maru, at certain times last game, he just wouldn't have enough tanks to actually situate left and right. And once you get to like 10 tanks, 5 tanks on each side, that's really hard to break. But if you're at 3 tanks, well, that's a lot easier to break. So the question is, this time around, is Maru going to hold on to his tank count? Remember last game there was that moment, seemingly a very big moment, where he lost like 5 tanks because they were kind of dragging behind his army. And that really set him up for a more difficult game, at the very least, because it lasted 12 more minutes after that. This time around, let's see if he makes the same mistake. He's got 8 tanks now. He was starting to build up a big old missile turret wall in the main base, but just shy of actual correct timing there. So a bit annoying, but does defend the left side. Oh, loses some of his tanks in the main. Again, that drop not being the most successful, but definitely not a failure either. It's a big X6 SCVs, 2 tanks, missile turrets all canceled or killed. Actually really not bad. But that will, I think, eventually not be a point of contest. Like, I don't think MarineLord can continue dropping there. Although I might try. He is once again looking over to the left side, and there's really not that much. Maru's going to be in big trouble. He just unsieged the Liberators. Not that 2 Liberators necessarily help the most. And those 2 tanks are going to get concaved on and taken out. Now, his army wasn't too far away, so he will be able to siege up and protect his planetary. It's going to take a little bit more than that to actually kill a planetary. But again, MarineLord finding himself in a fairly similar situation. He is the one that's in control. He's the one that's finding all these weak points of Maru. And while he's doing that, he is continuing to expand on location because he feels very confident in what he's doing, and he should. You know, yeah, technically all it would take is Maru's 1 medevac drop to cancel some of these command centers, but even then, it's not that big of a deal. If it were to happen, it'd be cleaned up pretty quickly. The point is, Maru does not have the ability currently to be out on the map with a truly intimidating force. He's been defending, and he's also transitioning, which is also the proper call because MarineLord is already going on to his Ravens as well. You don't want to be kept behind when it comes to the Raven transition. Even if you're already struggling in a TvT, you kind of also have to look towards Viking Raven. Because if you're just still only stuck on Marine Tank and on the defensive as well, you're in really big trouble. If you're Marine Tank and on the offensive, it can be okay, but... Anyways, MarineLord is doing that split siege like I talked about. Probably very aware of the possibilities of throwing away too many lives. Because that did happen last game. Resource trades overall fairly similar. And they are just gonna try and battle it out for position, for maps, for bases. But we are eventually gonna get to that maxed out situation with Raven Viking and eventually see an actual engagement. I do think this is more so a game, because Maru didn't just lose 8 tanks in the middle of nowhere. I do think this is a game where I don't think throwing bodies and it's not nearly as chaotic, right? So I'm just thinking of the way that MarineLord was playing last game. I think that would perhaps hurt him more in a game like this, where Maru has pretty much been good to go. There were definitely some dips, there were definitely some worrying moments for Maru, but I feel like he's been good to go. I think MarineLord's got to take this very patiently. I mean, he's going to have to win like a straight-up big battle, as opposed to just trying to find Maru, you know, super weak in what position. As I say that, this is kind of a weak position. Third CC is going to be under fire. Tanks weren't all around here. In fact, Maru now moving a lot of the tanks over. Has to make sure not to show them, because they'll be pounced upon if he does. But Maru does have enough, just needs to get it better position. MarineLord also going to join up forces. I was gonna say, Planetary could have been under attack. He's gonna go for it. He's gonna go for it. This is really dangerous to do. Anti-armor missile only affecting MarineLord's army puts them at a huge deficit. Those Marines did not stand a chance. Oh my god, they did not stand a chance. Huh, no blink of an eye. 50 supply lead now for Maru. Like, what the... I was really worried that was going to happen. I was really worried. MarineLord feeling way too confident to take that engagement. I mean, to be fair, there weren't that many tanks, I suppose. There could have been more. There could have been more tanks firing on that choke. But it was really the anti-armor missile. Missing 3 armor, right? Like, that's huge. His Marines did not stand a chance. And unfortunately, that was when he did actually have a literal upgrade lead, but not when anti-armor missile is on your army, and that's going to be it. Maru, again, playing this patiently, defensively, losing a little bit here and there and feeling like on the back foot, just takes one really good engagement. In that case, a very, very, very good engagement. The one engagement to rule them all. That was it. That was it. Unfortunately, MarineLord got the fight off in the lower...